Well, I'm pleased to welcome live to the programme now Todd Belt. He's the director of the political management programme at George Washington University. He joins us live from there. Hello to you. Thanks very much for speaking to us on this historic election day. I wonder what you made of what we're hearing in that report, that Trump is all but certain to claim this is fraudulent somehow if he loses the election. How seriously should Americans be worried about that?
Good morning. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on again. I think, the only way we don't see Donald Trump to provide these lawsuits is if he wins big in Pennsylvania and Kamala Harris concedes. I think this is a given. These lawsuits he's been preparing. He had them last time. And we know that both campaigns have dozens of lawyers at the ready. They are prepared for these legal challenges. And the other fact is that Donald Trump has a lot more supporters in election offices and canvassing boards now. And many of them have been empowered by state laws to be able to mount challenges to the counting of votes. So there is a lot of ways that he can slow this down, muddy the waters, and try to provide some of that political cover and public opinion cover for making it seem like these court cases might be legitimate.
Well, I suppose he tried the same thing, didn't he, after the last election in 2020. Eventually, of course, it was clear that Biden had won that election. There was no real doubt about it in the minds of experts, of observers. But there are still a good chunk of Americans who believe that actually that election was stolen from Donald Trump. So now, 4 years on, what do you think it will take for those same Republicans, the MAGA Republicans as they're known, the supporters of Trump, to accept the result of the vote if indeed Harris does win?
Right. You're absolutely correct that in 2020, we had the safest and most accurate vote count. And that phrase actually comes from Donald Trump's own Secretary of Homeland Security. And the 60 court cases were all, none of them could prove any sort of problems with the counting. But it is a testimony to Donald Trump's ability to have an impact over people just by constantly saying it. And a majority of Republicans do believe that the 2020 election was fraudulent. So what would it take to get Republicans to believe that the count is legitimate? It would take Donald Trump telling them so. Nothing else would do it.
Well, that is quite a thought. And we all remember what happened after the 2020 election, January 6th, the storming of the US Capitol. Do you think the United States should be braced for more violence if that scenario does play out again?
Not only do I think so, the states and Washington, D.C. think so. You're in this city right now, there are stores being boarded up, and I'm sure that we're going to start seeing some more police forces coming out and perhaps even National Guard troops. I think this is also going to be the case at state capitals. My concern mainly is some of these smaller counting facilities, which might be more targeted by some of these people who are concerned about the steal, as they call it. And I really just think that there's going to need to be enough forces out there to dissuade people from taking these sorts of violent actions.
And a word then on Kamala Harris. She, in contrast to Joe Biden when he was the candidate, didn't focus so much on the threat that Trump posed to democracy at the beginning of her campaign. She was trying to sort of offer a different vision to the American people. But she did in the past few weeks try to highlight the dangers that she believes he poses to American democracy. Do you think that was the right strategy from her? Will it have worked?
Well, I don't think it was as black and white as that in terms of a real pivot. She has been talking about the threat he is to democracy, and certainly she talked about that at the convention, and she talked more about that in recent weeks. But I actually attended her speech on the Mall, and about half of it was about her economic plans, and a good portion, of course, was about the threat of Trump to democracy. This is an issue, the threat to democracy, that turns out Democratic voters. It doesn't really convince a lot of people in the middle. It's those economic issues that do. But this is also the message that gets through in the press. Unfortunately, for all the economic plans that these candidates have, they haven't gotten a lot of coverage of those. It's messages like this that actually get more traction and are turned into what we call earned media, which means their messages are reported and rebroadcast on the news.
Todd Belt, really good to get your analysis on all of this. Thank you very much indeed.